Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is enjoying their day. Please subscribe and like the video before continuing. The Young and the Restless spoilers. Nikki gets surprising news, Dylan McAvoy returning? The Young and the Restless spoilers and updates tease Nikki Newman, Melody Thomas Scott, will get some surprising news. Is Dylan McAvoy, most recently Steve Burton, returning? Dylan was last seen in 2017 when he went into witness protection. It's about time he returned to Genoa City. Get updates on the latest news about The Young and the Restless, straight to your inbox. We use your personal data for interest-based advertising, as outlined in our privacy notice. What is this? Dylan is the son of Nikki and Paul Williams. Dylan is the son of Nikki and Paul Williams, Doug Davidson, and once was married to Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, and he owned Crimson Lights before Sharon took it over when he left town. He had relationships with Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, Sister Avery Clark, Jessica Collins, and before he married Sharon, he was married for a short time to Chelsea Lawson, Melissa Claire Egan. Dylan was also afflicted with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder from his years with the military in Afghanistan. Dylan had gone undercover as a member of the Genoa City Police Department and fought some dangerous men, one of which he killed in self-defense. But the criminals' network of thugs were still a danger to not only Dylan, but his family, and he left town in witness protection. What is this? The Young and the Restless spoilers. Nikki gets surprising news, Dylan McAvoy returning? In Genoa City, the unexpected is always right around the corner, and few characters embody that truth more than Nikki Newman. For decades, Nikki has weathered storms both personal and public, from battling addiction to navigating her complicated marriage with Victor Newman, to keeping her sprawling family intact. Yet just when it seems Nikki has reached a place of uneasy stability, The Young and the Restless appears ready to deliver another shocker that could upend her world yet again. Spoilers suggest Nikki will soon receive surprising news that will not only shake her personally but could reverberate through the entire Newman family dynasty. And the whispers around Genoa City are already growing louder. Could this bombshell involve Dylan McAvoy, Nikki's long-lost son, making an explosive return? The potential for Dylan's comeback is huge, both in storyline and emotional weight, because his absence has always been a gaping hole in Nikki's heart. Dylan's disappearance into witness protection years ago was a devastating loss for her, and since then, Nikki has occasionally referenced him but rarely allowed herself to dwell on the pain of a son she couldn't protect. Now, with troubling events surrounding Victor's latest schemes, Victoria's struggles with Nate and Claire, and Nick's own personal crossroads, bringing Dylan back into the mix would alter the family's trajectory dramatically. Fans know Dylan's return wouldn't just be a personal twist for Nikki. It would create shockwaves in Sharon's world, rattle Nick, and potentially pit Dylan against Adam in a battle for Newman relevance. Nikki Newman is no stranger to surprising news, but this one could touch her soul in a way that no corporate takeover or romantic betrayal ever could. Spoilers tease that Nikki may soon discover information that leaves her questioning her past choices and present loyalties. Could it be a message from Dylan? A revelation that he is not only alive and well but ready to reconnect? Given Dylan's dangerous history with the criminal underworld and his FBI involvement, it is not out of the realm of possibility that his return would be prompted by a threat only he can help neutralize. Nikki, who has often been portrayed as a mother desperate to keep her children safe, would likely be torn between overwhelming joy at the thought of Dylan re-entering her life and fear over what new dangers his reappearance could bring. For Nikki, surprising news rarely comes without baggage, and Dylan's return would be no exception. Imagine the emotional fallout if Nikki were to suddenly learn that Dylan is back in Genoa City. Her heart would leap with joy, yet she would almost certainly be flooded with guilt over the years they lost. Victor, never one to trust easily, might immediately question Dylan's motives or wonder whether his return signals trouble for the Newman empire. The protective patriarch has always been suspicious of outsiders, and while Dylan is his stepson, Victor may see him as an unpredictable variable who could disrupt the delicate balance of power within the family. Victoria, who is already juggling chaos with Nate and Claire, would likely be wary of another sibling's return, especially one with such strong ties to Sharon. Nick, on the other hand, would probably welcome Dylan back with open arms, though his complicated history with Sharon could make things messy if Dylan and Sharon rekindle old sparks. Nikki, caught in the middle, would once again find herself trying to keep her family united even as fissures threatened to split them apart. The Sharon factor cannot be ignored in all of this. Sharon and Dylan shared a marriage that ended when Dylan was forced into witness protection, and though Sharon eventually moved on, she never truly found closure. Dylan's reappearance could stir up old feelings, complicating her bond with Chance Chancellor, and raising questions about whether Dylan still holds a place in her heart. For Sharon, Dylan's return could reopen old wounds but also bring healing she has long denied herself. At the same time, it could reignite rivalry with Nick or even create tension with Adam if Dylan begins to insert himself into Newman business or Sharon's personal life. Adding to the drama is the fact that Dylan has always been portrayed as a man of principle, honor, and integrity, a sharp contrast to many in Genoa City. If he does return, his presence could serve as a foil to Victor's manipulations and Adam's schemes, and perhaps even as a stabilizing influence in Nikki's life as she continues to battle her demons. Nikki's sobriety has been fragile in recent months, tested by stress and family drama. A reunion with Dylan could either strengthen her resolve or, if riddled with complications, push her closer to relapse. The emotional weight of rediscovering a son she thought lost could be both healing and destabilizing at once. But what form will this surprising news take? Spoilers have hinted at phone calls, mysterious letters, or even an unexpected visitor arriving in Genoa City. If Nikki is blindsided by a direct encounter with Dylan, the shock factor would be enormous. Imagine Nikki opening her front door to find Dylan standing there, alive, well, and ready to reclaim his place in the Newman orbit. The tears, the hugs, the disbelief, it would be one of the most emotional reunions in Y&R history. Alternatively, the news could come indirectly, perhaps through Sharon, who might be contacted by Dylan first, setting off a chain reaction of revelations and confrontations. Of course, in true soap fashion, Dylan's return would not be without layers of danger and intrigue. If he comes back, he may be bringing threats from his past with him. Former enemies, criminal networks, or even federal cases could trail Dylan to Genoa City, putting not just him but the entire Newman family at risk. Nikki's surprising news could thus become a double-edged sword, the joy of seeing her son again balanced against the fear that his reappearance could endanger everyone she loves. And knowing Genoa City's track record, any secret Dylan is keeping will eventually explode in dramatic fashion. Longtime viewers also know that storylines involving the Newman family rarely stay contained. If Dylan returns, his re-entry would ripple outward to characters like Chelsea, who may have her own opinions about his connection to Sharon, and even Phyllis, who always seems ready to stir the pot. With tensions already high in Genoa City thanks to corporate battles, romantic entanglements, and long-simmering rivalries, Dylan's comeback could be the spark that ignites an explosive new chapter. For Nikki, the surprising news of Dylan's potential return represents both her greatest wish and her deepest fear. She has longed to see her son again, but she knows that in Genoa City, happiness is rarely untainted. Still, if Dylan does come back, it could provide Nikki with a renewed sense of purpose and family unity that she desperately needs. The Newmans are stronger together, but the path to unity is never smooth, and Dylan's return could test those bonds like never before. Fans are already buzzing with speculation, and for good reason. Bringing Dylan McAvoy back to The Young and the Restless would not only honor long-running story arcs but also inject fresh energy into current plots. With Nikki at the center of it all, this storyline has the potential to be one of the most emotional and impactful in years. Whether the surprising news comes in the form of a phone call, The Young and the Restless spoilers indicate that Nikki Newman's surprising news could arrive at a moment when she is least prepared for it. Nikki has been juggling her ongoing commitment to sobriety, managing Victor's unpredictable decisions, and trying to be the stabilizing matriarch for a family that constantly finds itself embroiled in scandal and betrayal. In soap operas, timing is everything, and this revelation about Dylan McAvoy could not come at a more precarious time. Just as Nikki feels she has a fragile sense of balance, fate could send her a curveball that forces her to reassess not only her family's future but her own ability to cope with another emotional storm. One of the most compelling aspects of this storyline is the layered history between Nikki and Dylan. When it was revealed years ago that Dylan was her biological son with Paul Williams, it shook the canvas of Genoa City. The revelation altered the dynamics of Nikki's identity as a mother, brought Paul into a new chapter of his life, and gave fans an entirely new perspective on Dylan's place within the Newman legacy. But Dylan's eventual departure into witness protection left a void, one that Nikki never fully confronted. The show subtly reminded viewers of his absence through occasional mentions, but the character's unfinished story always left the door open for a possible return. Nikki receiving surprising news about Dylan could mean that Y&R is ready to finally revisit and resolve this dangling thread. Dylan's reappearance would also raise questions about Paul Williams. Though Paul has not been a major fixture in recent years, the connection between Paul, Dylan, and Nikki is a critical piece of the puzzle. If Dylan comes back, would Paul also make an appearance, or at least be mentioned? Their shared son could serve as the link that brings old characters back into the fold, strengthening the emotional resonance of this storyline. Fans have often clamored for more Paul, and Dylan's storyline could be the perfect avenue to give viewers that payoff. From a dramatic standpoint, the ripple effects of Dylan's return cannot be overstated. Sharon would find herself at the center of an emotional triangle, torn between her current life and the unresolved chapter with Dylan. Chance Chancellor has been growing closer to Sharon, and while their relationship has not yet reached the deep, rooted love she once shared with Dylan, Chance is clearly invested in her. Dylan's return could force Sharon to confront old feelings and make difficult choices, inevitably leading to tension with Chance. Viewers love a good romantic triangle, and this one would come with years of history, unhealed wounds, and the kind of emotional stakes that make for classic soap storytelling. Nick Newman, ever the protector, would likely find himself caught in the middle as well. Nick has always had a complicated dynamic with Sharon, and Dylan's return would stir up old rivalries. Would Nick feel threatened by Dylan's presence, or would he welcome his brother with open arms and hope that Sharon finds happiness, even if it isn't with him? Meanwhile, Adam would likely take a far more cynical view of Dylan's reappearance. Adam has long been painted as the Newman outsider, and the return of another half-sibling could deepen his insecurities. If Dylan re-enters Newman Enterprises' orbit, Adam might see him as a competitor and react with bitterness. That could set up an Adam versus Dylan rivalry, a fresh dynamic that would inject new life into the sibling rivalries that dominate so much of Newman drama. Victor Newman, of course, would be the wild card. While Nikki's heart would be overwhelmed with joy, Victor's instincts would almost certainly be suspicious. Where has Dylan been all these years? Why is he back now? Victor has a long history of distrusting anyone he perceives as a threat to his family empire, and Dylan, whether intentionally or not, could be seen as just that. This would put Nikki in an impossible position, forced to choose between supporting her son's return and maintaining harmony with her husband. Such conflict between Nikki and Victor is classic Y&R, and it would give both characters rich material as they navigate the delicate balance of love, trust, and family loyalty. Beyond the Newmans, Dylan's return could intersect with Genoa City's other ongoing storylines in fascinating ways. With corporate rivalries intensifying, especially between Newman Enterprises and Chancellor Winters, Dylan's skill set as a man of principle and action could place him right in the middle of high-stakes drama. Could Dylan decide to join one of these powerhouses, inadvertently creating new battles between family members? Or would he instead reject the corporate world entirely, choosing instead to work with law enforcement, much like Chance? A Dylan-Chance partnership in the police or investigative sphere could make for a dynamic duo, but it could also set up conflict if Sharon becomes a point of tension between them. Fans have long recognized that the young and the restless thrives on generational drama, and Dylan's re-entry would enrich that tapestry. His presence could provide Claire Grace Newman, the newest addition to the family tree, with a mentor figure who understands the challenges of being thrust into the Newman orbit. Dylan, having once struggled with his own identity, could serve as a stabilizing influence for Claire as she continues to navigate her role in the family. Meanwhile, his interactions with Summer, Kyle, and even Chelsea could expand his role beyond just Nikki and Sharon's orbits, ensuring that his comeback has long-lasting impact. There's also the question of Dylan's own personal baggage. Witness protection isn't something you walk away from casually. If he does return, does that mean the threats against him are gone? Or could his reappearance bring dangerous enemies back into the fold? Genoa City has no shortage of villains, and Dylan's re-entry could easily attract old foes or new enemies, giving the show plenty of fuel for high-stakes suspense. Nikki's surprising news, then, may not just be joyful but also ominous, a sign that her son's safety, and perhaps her entire family's, could once again be on the line. For Nikki, this is the kind of storyline that puts her at the emotional center of the canvas, where she belongs. Melody Thomas Scott has built a career on portraying Nikki's strength and vulnerability in equal measure, and this plot would give her the chance to showcase both. Nikki would be ecstatic to have Dylan back, but the emotional turmoil, guilt, and fear that come with it would provide a complex journey that fans would relish. In a soap where corporate intrigue often dominates, this deeply personal story would bring balance and heart to the narrative, reminding viewers why the Newman family remains at the core of The Young and the Restless. The Young and the Restless spoilers. Dylan is the son of Nikki and Paul Williams. In the complex world of Genoa City, secrets have a way of bubbling back to the surface no matter how deeply they are buried. Few revelations in the history of The Young and the Restless shook the core of the Newman and Williams families more than the bombshell that Dylan McAvoy is the biological son of Nikki Newman and Paul Williams. It was a twist that rewrote the history of two legacy characters and forever altered the dynamics of Genoa City. Now, spoilers suggest the past may once again come roaring back to the forefront, reminding everyone that Dylan's parentage is a thread that can never truly be forgotten. For Nikki, the revelation of Dylan's true parentage was both a blessing and a burden. After years of living with secrets, lies, and regrets, learning that she had a son with Paul forced her to reconcile with a past she thought was long behind her. The news initially stunned the entire town, especially Victor Newman, who was forced to reckon with the fact that his wife shared a permanent bond with another man through their child. For Paul, the discovery of Dylan as his son was equally life-changing. As Genoa City's longtime police chief and a man who spent decades focused on law, order, and morality, Paul suddenly had to navigate the responsibilities of fatherhood later in life. The storyline allowed Doug Davidson to explore new emotional depths as Paul wrestled with what it meant to be a father to a grown man he had never raised. Dylan himself, played by Steve Burton, was placed at the center of a narrative that redefined his role in Genoa City. Until that point, Dylan had been primarily known as a war veteran struggling with PTSD, a man of honor who fell in love with Sharon and tried to build a life with her. The revelation of his parentage elevated him instantly, tying him to two of the show's most iconic families. Suddenly, Dylan was not just a supporting character but a legacy figure with a direct bloodline to two powerhouse clans. This gave him significance in both personal and corporate battles, and it made him a character that fans invested in deeply. The storyline of Dylan's paternity was filled with the kind of dramatic beats that soap operas thrive on. Nikki's guilt over keeping secrets, Paul's shock at learning the truth, Victor's fury at being blindsided, and Dylan's struggle to process the news all provided fertile ground for emotional storytelling. Yet even with all of that drama, the character of Dylan was eventually written off, sent into witness protection after becoming entangled with dangerous criminals. His exit left many fans unsatisfied because it meant that the rich potential of his parentage storyline remained largely unexplored. Dylan being the son of Nikki and Paul is not just a fact from the past, it is a card that the show can play at any moment to reignite old rivalries and stir new conflicts. Spoilers now hint that the show may be revisiting Dylan's history, and that possibility has fans buzzing. Imagine the impact if Dylan were to return to Genoa City and reclaim his place as the son of Nikki and Paul. The ripple effects would be immense. For Nikki, Dylan's reappearance would force her to once again face the choices she made as a young woman, choices that led to his adoption and separation from her. Nikki has spent her life haunted by regrets, and Dylan is one of her deepest scars. Having her son back in her life would be both joyous and painful, as she would be forced to confront the years lost between them. For Paul, Dylan's return would represent unfinished business. Paul always tried to be a steady father figure once the truth came out, but his opportunities were limited by Dylan's departure. Bringing Dylan back would give Paul a chance at redemption, a chance to forge the bond he never fully had. For Victor, however, Dylan's return would be a different story entirely. Victor has never handled threats to his family's unity well, and Dylan's reappearance would inevitably reopen old wounds. Victor might see Dylan as a rival for Nikki's attention, or even as a potential wedge driven between him and his wife. The tension between Victor and Paul has always been simmering, and Dylan's role as their permanent link would bring those resentments to the surface in explosive ways. The potential storyline possibilities are endless. Dylan's identity as the son of Nikki and Paul positions him uniquely within Genoa City. On one hand, he is connected to the Newman Empire through Nikki. On the other, he is tied to law enforcement and morality through Paul. This duality makes him a fascinating character who can move between worlds, creating conflict and drama wherever he goes. Dylan could easily find himself pulled into corporate wars if Victor or Victoria attempt to bring him into Newman Enterprises. At the same time, he could be drawn back into law enforcement alongside Chance Chancellor, following in his father Paul's footsteps. Either path would create compelling drama, as Dylan would be forced to choose between loyalty to his mother's side or honoring his father's legacy. The Sharon factor adds another layer of complexity. Sharon and Dylan's marriage ended not because of a lack of love but because of circumstances beyond their control. Dylan entering witness protection was a tragic goodbye that left Sharon devastated. If Dylan returns, their unfinished love story would come roaring back to the surface. Sharon has worked hard to rebuild her life, but Dylan was the kind of partner who brought stability and honor into her world. His reappearance could disrupt her relationship with Chance and reignite old feelings she thought were buried. For Dylan, Sharon may always be the great love of his life, and seeing her again could awaken long-dormant desires. This love triangle would be rich with emotional stakes, especially if Chance and Sharon's bond has grown deeper in Dylan's absence. Another key player in this storyline would be Christine Blair, who shares a long and complicated history with both Paul and Nikki. Christine would likely have strong opinions about Dylan's re-entry into their lives, especially given her protective nature toward Paul. Could Christine feel threatened by the bond between Paul, Nikki, and Dylan? Might she worry that Paul will once again be pulled into Nikki's orbit, reopening old wounds in their triangle? Christine's involvement would add an additional layer of tension, ensuring that the Dylan storyline reverberates across multiple legacy characters. From a legacy standpoint, Dylan's parentage cements him as one of the most important characters in Y&R history. He is the bridge between the Newman and Williams families, a connection that unites two of Genoa City's most iconic lineages. This gives the writers endless possibilities for drama, alliances, and rivalries. Dylan's children, if introduced in the future, would carry the blood of both families, ensuring that his impact stretches into future generations of the show. For fans, this makes Dylan's return not just desirable but essential, because it keeps the legacy of the show alive while also delivering fresh storytelling. Thematically, the revelation that Dylan is Nikki and Paul's son is a reminder of the show's core values: family secrets, redemption, and the idea that the past always comes back to haunt the present. It is a storyline that allows for deep emotional resonance while also providing plenty of opportunities for high-stakes drama. Whether Dylan returns to face old enemies, reignite